Item 1, apologies for absence. So I got one from Nicola McKinnon and Karen to introduce herself. Who's kind of
Hi, yes, I'm Karen Wickleys. I am welfare officer for Untitled Town Football Club, but I am in Sally and Nicola as part of the subcommittee for sports facility and community. Feeding into Neighbourhood Town.
And thank you very much for coming tonight. All the work we've done. We'll have quick updates on that. Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. I'm conscious you won't have an agenda. You won't be on the
That's absolutely fine. I'm
list.
sure.
Apologies. So I'll just look at that. Item 2, any declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3, public participation. We've had one question, well, it's 2 questions, but one inquiry from a member of the public. Thank you very much for doing that. I won't name the person. And there's 2 questions. First one is, what is the Banham? So this person's read the neighbourhood plan. Well done. What is the Banham Poultry Service Trench? Now, I've again gone through the AMP and there's nothing specific on that. So if you're watching, but I'll reply tomorrow anyway to the individual concerned. The only reference in the AMP about Banham Poultry is a more general one in terms of were designs at the time years ago, if they could move all the operations down to Funds Bank. But there's nothing specific in terms of what is the Banham Poultry Service Trench in the AMP, but I'll contact the individual privately if you're happy with that, and I'll let you know what is said, but there's nothing specific in the AMP about that. The second question is, are any cycle routes part of the plan? The answer is yes. Within the transport and communications theme, the main policy in there and objective is to look at an integrated transport plan and implementation plan. And this partly fits in with all the highway improvements that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly down London Road. I know there's been numerous comments on social media about the increase in the footway and the implications that might have or has had on the highway itself, cars and width. But that was part of trying to make shared space to encourage more walking, more cycling, particularly to the developments further down London Road. And in the AMP, we were always very keen to look at how to encourage cycling generally and what cycle improvements we could make. This ties in, and I won't go into it in much detail, so the next meeting of 20-minute neighbourhood, whereby we do want the community to be better connected, people to walk and cycle more. That improves things both in terms of car usage, but health and social interaction and everything else. So it is a big part of it. The only demonstrable thing at the moment is the London Road scheme. Even though I have seen, and I'm sure you all have as well, comments on what is it, does it work? We're in discussion with reference about that, of how to ensure the money that's being spent is adequately used, let's say. So hopefully that answers those questions. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on any of those.
Cycle path is excellent. I use it a lot, and often other people do as well. And it's now very safe for children. You can actually know people from cycle paths. It works very well.
Excellent.
And if people use them now, so you can actually get around in West Car, go into West Car Road, and then come back along the side of the bypass on the other side of the track. comes up to Town Hall bypass, which means brings you up to Queen's Road. So there's a semicircular route at the moment.
Any other comments? Well, I think that's an important point. I mean, as a town planner, I'm bound to say this, but you do look at the future, and any impacts are not instantaneous. But it's about generational change, it's about behavioural change, and we've all seen the news about climate change, carbon zero, pressures on sustainability and planet and what have you. And it's thinking ahead as to how can we accommodate that, how can we live with that. So there are going to be tough choices in the future, but at least let's look at those. And we do want to be an ambitious town, and work with Breckland's Council as well as being an ambitious, sustainable town and how growth should be. So we won't see it instantaneously, but there are improvements going on. Has anyone else had any comments from the public that they wish to raise in this meeting at all? Or if you've got, yeah, sorry, Taylor.
I do have a few, but I was going to bring them into the discussion on the parking strategy, if that's okay.
That's fine, yeah. Okay, thank you. So if nothing else, if we move on to item number 4, which is minutes of the previous meeting. What I'd like to do, if we go through the actions, so first of all, are there any inaccuracies with the minutes themselves? And then what I'd like to do is just go through the actions to at least see what we've done or not done or whatever. So in terms of accuracy of the meetings, any comments? No? Okay, thank you. And thank you very much. Excellent work again. Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's just go through the actions very quickly. So car parking strategy, that's on item 5A. I'm quite happy to deal with it there if people are happy with that. And I know Councillor Telly, you just said you've got some questions on that. Okay, London Road Park, again, that's under 5D, and there have been meetings taking place since the last AMP committee on that, so we can cover it under that agenda item, if people are happy with that. And recreation ground, again, that's on the agenda, so we can cover it there. Anyone got any questions on the minutes or actions? Yes.
You've got me the end bit of Decoy Common. I have been in touch with Breckland executive member, and I'm waiting to hear back. So about finger posts, so it is ongoing, but it is definitely in the pipeline.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And again, sorry, beg your pardon, that's on the agenda. I was just looking at actions with my initial against them.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't going to run through my initials against.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Lily. Appreciate that. Okay, so can I have a proposal to accept the minutes? Councillor Dale, seconds. Councillor Westby. All those in favour? Anyone against or abstain?
I was absent, so I won't.
No, that's,
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
yeah, no, thanks. Lily. Okay, moving on to item 5 and AMP projects. And if you recall, previous meetings we've tried to keep it under the themes, the 7 themes of the AMP, and maybe they're not quite working as well as they could do generally, but some are exceptional. We'll hear about those in a minute. So, we have looked at AMP projects, and what I'd like to do under item 7, under any other business, is discuss how we deal with projects and the administration and taking them forward under that. So the first one is car parking strategy. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, so after the BBC Radio Norfolk interview that I done last Tuesday, Wednesday, I had a resident contact me that lives on Harpham Road, but she's quite aware of the issues up near the school. And we were talking about the land, obviously, and potential use of car parking. And I think there had been, in my mind, this kind of acknowledgement that maybe it wouldn't be used to the best of its ability because it would only be like 38 weeks of the year or 32 weeks of the year, whatever the term times are, Monday to Friday, for those couple of hours a day. So it might be the argument that the land's not best used. But when I was speaking to this lady, she said that actually it could be a commuter car park. So if there was a bus stop put in there, that instead of people parking in Queen Square car park all day and getting the bus and going to Norwich, I know obviously there's a time restriction on the parking there now, but rather than parking in Queen Square or in the town centre car parks to get the bus to go to Norwich for the day, they could actually park there out of the town centre and get the bus from there into Norwich, so it could be a commuter car park. And she also said that the Ramblers, I think I've got this right, I did write it down, but I left my notepad at home. They're a walking group that actually the last 3 years have no longer used Attleborough for their routes. They used to do like a Harpham Woods walk and one to Deetham or something like that. She did tell me, which I thought was interesting because obviously Councillor Lane brought this up at our last council meeting. But the reason they don't come to Attleborough anymore is because they can't park. So it's a car parking issue that stopped them coming into the town. And I think because it's a national thing, there's obviously, when they do come together, they have got quite high numbers and they probably would come 3-4 times a year. And when they're here, obviously it increases the footfall in the town centre and they normally do stop for lunch, she said. So obviously that's another use, obviously for those like group activities as well. I also, when I was looking at car parking, obviously before that, stumbled across a study that was done in 2013, which was the Attleborough Town Centre Transport Study, the final report, and that was done by Capita. And it's huge, it's like 149 pages long, so it's a massive report. Obviously it's quite outdated now because that was some time ago. But even then, obviously, there's an acknowledgement of the fact that we're short of car parking in the town centre. But there actually is, and it's worth, I think, all members having a look at. There is actually, I think it's, 9.4 parking strategy, page 107. So I think actually there is kind of something there. I mean, I've never got around, I think probably should have forwarded it around the meeting, but I've just had a busy week. There we go, there's my excuse for that. I think actually this is something for us to have a look at, and it might actually just be a bit of a foundation for us to move forward from, because I think in the past, obviously the car parking strategy you've brought it up at many meetings over the last, I don't even know how many years, and there's not been a lot of movement, but obviously this would have been a report that I'm assuming was funded by Brecon Council, so I think as well, if there's any acknowledgements in here, that kind of would push for that partnership working that we're looking for.
Thank you. Just on that, part of that, the car parking strategy, the scope and the brief will be coming at the next meeting. I've not finalised it yet, so I'm talking to a few people, and part of it is looking at what work has been done to date. I mean, the study done in 2008, actually did, not previously, and also do the capital one, which was partly designed to support the 4,000 housing planning application. So there's been a lot of work being done, recent work, and also with the assessment of all the surveys that were done a few years ago. So all that is being acknowledged within the scope and the brief for the parking strategy and study we want to do, as well as picking up the recent issues such as Rosecroft and the impact of parking areas. So that will be coming to the next meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't get a picture of this one, but it will come to the next one for comments. So,
Would it be handy if I forward this round to members before then?
yeah,
Yeah.
by all means. Yeah.
Okay.
Elizabeth, sorry.
I was just going to say, Terry Cracknell was highly involved with that and would actually frequently bring it to the attention of the council.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Just
Bill and then Luke.
sorry. Just by way of rounding that conversation off a little bit and bringing it up to date. Thank you very much for doing the interview when I wasn't available to do. Rodri Oliver has been fantastic at helping highlight this issue with Norfolk County Council and raise questions in person to them as well on this matter. We've had a response back to some of the questions for the Rosecroft School area and the plot of land they're looking to sell for development. The response has been they are still looking to pursue the sale of that, regardless of the requests that we've made to them so far. Rodri has made excellent cases, and we have fully supported him in this. But they are saying that if we want that land to be used for something else, we need to purchase it. And the figure that they've given us is £250,000. To resolve an issue that has been created by the school not fulfilling its requirements under the planning regulations to open the drop-off zone. Obviously, that's not something that we can look at, particularly in resolving these issues, and I need to be realistic about it. That's where we are at the moment. But we were also told by Norfolk County Council that they're in communication with the new head teacher of Rosecroft about having the drop-off zone opened in the new term, which we are continuing to put pressure on in December, because that is an immediate relief that's available to that area, and it's a real safety concern. It is perhaps the biggest safety issue we have within the town at the moment.
Thank you. Can I just add to that? The school was approved subject to conforming to Norfolk County Council's parking standards. It's done that. I think the school's just illuminate to the fact that it's not being put into practice. We could then argue it becomes an enforcement issue. And if it's not done in September, i.e. the head saying, yes, we will open the school, and we've had COVID and everything else, so there's a lot of things. But it was a planning condition. If not, we can just request that we go through an enforcement. And we talk to the planning authorities about how they're going to enforce them. In terms of the land, again, I'm putting this from a professional point of view. One, I don't think it'll make any difference. It's a lot of money. The county will want it for their capital investments anyway. And it's back to this longer term ideal, and it is an ideal, and I get that, of the reason why footpaths are put down there is to encourage students and parents and whatever to walk and cycle there and not drive 5 minutes to drop students off and back in. But I understand why they do it, because it's a safety issue. But it's this circular movement of more people that drive there increases the safety issues, because there's more cars there and more people see more cars, more want to drive the kids there. It's this perpetual movement, and it is back to that behavioural change we've got to look at in the town over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think the first thing is, let's see what happens this September on Rosecroft. As a council, all we can do is write to Brecon saying, are you enforcing, or the county council, are you enforcing that planning condition? If not, we take enforcement action and take it from there. Yes,
that's all right. Just a small point, Councillor Taylor, you mentioned the Ramblers. That might be a good organisation or group for us to kind of communicate with. Am I right in saying that back in the day that the Ramblers would have campaigned for a lot of the country's walking routes to be maintained and even produced? I know that's a full council thing, but Councillor Lane is pursuing, but that could definitely be added under a belt for that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the principle on that is on the buy deck, but also the green infrastructure strategy. Not only improving our existing open spaces, which is limited, but also, bizarrely, we are landlocked. you can't punch your way out of Glastonbury to go and walk around the countryside
No.
for a number of reasons. And it's that wider things, and again, we're talking with Rambler Society and others as to what we can do and how we can do it, and working with Brecon and other key stakeholders. It's a challenge for everyone, but we recognise it, we want to do something about it, but these things don't happen overnight, unfortunately. But the aspirations are absolutely. Yes, Elizabeth, sorry.
In the days of yore, I was just thinking it's a long time ago, for many years I was chairman of governors at the primary school in Westport Road, and we had a huge campaign about getting children to walk to school. They all had an apron, lumens, etc. And something that I think we always forget is that a very high percentage of parents work and mothers work, and they actually take so much longer to walk a 5-year-old to school and then walk back home and collect your car than to drop your child off on the way to school. And you don't then, parents aren't keen to leave their children to walk to school by themselves without seeing they're safely in before they go off to work. Absolutely. And I think that was the biggest thing, not the lack of energy or anything else. It was the time factor. And schools won't take the children in too early anyway. So there is an issue there.
It's a massive issue. I mean, it's so complex that people have different travel patterns and reasons for doing it and everything else. But even if you can get those that don't need to drive to school off, it creates a bit more capacity. And it's very complex, but we've got to address it somehow, and we will do. Okay, so just summarising that, I know Rosecraft is under discussion, we understand that. I'll be bringing the scope and the brief for a parking strategy back to this meeting. That will be discussed with Brecon, the highway authority as well, to make sure we've got it right. And also capture the potential imminent car park and trial Queen Square that we were trying to discuss with Brecon. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 5B, the local market.
So with the local market, I sent out a report shortly after the meeting where we first discussed it. I have spoke to some of the retailers in the town. Some won't touch the market with a barge pole. Some actually seemed quite keen. And actually, of some of the retailers that I spoke to, because obviously we're discussing the potential of the Saturday market and the Thursday market, a couple of them did actually say that a Thursday would be better suited because it's a slower day for them in the store, which made me really happy, because also within my research, I realised that in 5 years' time, we've had our market for 800 years. So that's something to pencil on our calendar. So big celebration in the next few years. But I feel like that should motivate us even more to save it, because obviously that is quite an achievement, I think. I think what we should do is, with that, the proposal that I want to make is that we write or email, because obviously letters are trees, each of the businesses in town, so that it's completely inclusive, nobody's missed, because I think everyone needs to be given equal opportunities, and invite them to a meeting, one representative from that business to a meeting, where they are offered a market stall, either, and they can choose, they have their choice of a Thursday or a Saturday, and I think we should do it for free for 6 months. I was going to say 3 months, but I think what harm is it to say 6 months as that to entice them, when actually we're not making any money at the moment because we have no stalls. So do you know what I mean? What difference does it make to us if we're not got that income anyway, whether it's 3 months or 6? So I'm going to make a proposal for 6 months and see what they say when they come, because I don't,
Okay, great. Bill,
Yeah, I know that we've been discussing about getting project leads on each of these with deadlines and briefs and things. So that sounds like a pretty tight brief. And it seems like you're leading that up at the moment. So are you happy?
I can send the email if everyone's okay for me to do that and do that representation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sooner we get that done, the better, because I'm all for that. And some of the ideas that have been coming around is We're very precious about the Thursday market, despite it not being particularly successful at the moment. But we could make it successful, and that seems to be the one that people are coalescing around. With perhaps a Saturday market once a month, where on a rotation, whatever. Well, that was one of the proposals, where it could be 3 different things that we do 4 times a year, once a month. So it's just repeated quarter by quarter.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? I think as well to have that option, because obviously from this, like these conversations, I've realised actually, like I just said, the fact that shop owners or local businessmen will know, business people, will know what days are busier for them, what they'll have more staff free to man the stalls and whatever else. So I think to give them the option and say what suits you, is probably the most supportive action that we can take.
It's community led, which is what we're looking to do. So sounds like an action.
Okay. A second thing, and I haven't got the specific date, because I probably should have looked before I got here, but I do know Tony Bale from the Talking newspaper. Yeah, that's his name.
Yes.
At the time, he did point out that in October, I think it's late October, I want to say the 21st, it's a Thursday, which is convenient because obviously we have a Thursday market. The 21st is the Thursday, I just checked, is National Apple Day. And obviously Attleborough is famous for its apples, so that gives us almost, well, just over 2 months to organise something. And I didn't actually know if we should go a bit extra with our market that day and try and get some apple themed things. So specifically over the next 2 months, advertise that, you know, maybe an event on Queen Square where, you know, people could have, I don't know, apple pies or toffee apples, or, do you know what I mean, apple scented wax melts and bath bombs, or, do you know what I mean, just all things apples.
It's exciting. That's Andy's contribution. Yeah, but I love the principle of that, and the good thing is, you know, our next council meeting that we've got in a couple of weeks' time. So we're going to be setting up a new events communication subgroup or subcommittee, which can pick that up and run with it as well. So there'll be a support mechanism from the council to do that.
Yeah.
Great. So
I am just mindful there is only, just over 2 months.
Firstly, a comment on the Apple Day celebration. Does Mickey Greenwood still hold a stall on the market? You know,
I don't think so.
Mickey Greenwood used to make apple juice. He had his family had an orchard or something. I think he used to do a lot of fresh produce.
Not Mickey. When he was teaching, he was called Mickey. Mike Greenwood.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike Greenwood.
I believe I spoke to him a while ago. And I think that he suffered quite heavily throughout the lockdown and may not be as active as he used to be in producing anything. But it might be worth making contact with him, inviting him if he's got any stock ready for it or anything like that, or giving him the time to prepare stock. And then my second comment is, without disgruntling our high street businesses in town, is there a way that we can give a platform to those that operate businesses from home? So, for example, Bakerholics, she operated for a long time without a premises from home. It'd be great if we could give those sort of people a platform as well.
What about Barrow's greengrocers who now deliver all over the town?
Yeah.
I'm sure they might be interested.
Well, that was one of the things that was in the highest demand when I put a post on social media, and people were coming back and saying what they'd like to see on the Thursday or Saturday market. Fresh fruit and veg was way up there.
Well, they
I'd say
currently
in the top 3.
They operate from the green self-storage in what village is that?
Wickham.
Yes.
Oh, they deliver to me every week, so I can
Yeah.
Well, they're boroughs and it's kind of.
Okay, so you suggested a proposal.
Okay, so the proposal was,
Like to,
well, if Phil's happy if everyone's happy for me to take a lead on it, the proposal would be for myself to email individually each of the businesses in the town to offer them a free market stall for a period of 6 months, on a Thursday or Saturday of their choice, or that's their choice, and invite them to a meeting to discuss further. So, do you know what I mean? If they've got anything they'd like to add to it, or do you know what I mean, what their ideas are. I think that's probably a good idea if you do have one representative. Sorry, I've gone off track again. From each business, because I think, for instance, we've got My Hills Pet Shop, or My Hills, and then we've got Taylor's. So it'd be nice to know if, you know, for instance, if My Hills were being garden led, Taylor's could be maybe pet led. Like, do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. So I think to get everyone in a room, then you can kind of thrash those ideas out. So yeah, so to also invite them to a meeting.
I would second the proposal.
Okay, can we vote on that? People happy?
Can I make a second proposal? I know we are getting the events committee, but can I just propose that we are going to go ahead with the Apple Day event on the 21st, just so we can put the feelers out to people, and see if anyone would be interested in an Apple themed store.
Yeah, as long as you're happy that that may be assisted.
Yeah,
by the
like,
events
yeah,
at a
of
later
course,
stage,
of course.
but to get that proposal.
But just to get it in
I
the
would
public
definitely
domain.
second the Apple Day.
Thank you.
Again, just anyone objecting, let's do it that way. No, right. The only thing the other thing I would suggest with regards to the stores in the market, and both of which I think we all agree, is whether that needs to be approved by full council, so its income and what have you. So we'll bring it to the next full council meeting.
I think the purpose of the meeting is to see if people do this.
Yeah.
And then if they will do that, then it will need to go to full council because it has financial implications. But in principle, we need to see what the support is and whether we can do that. So it's in principle, would you?
Yeah. And the thing is that weekend as well of the or that week of the Apple Day celebration, it's an anniversary for the Talking newspaper. So I think they want to do a piece on Outborough and on Wyndham. So I think that obviously gives you something to talk about.
And I'm happy to
Nice to
participate in that with Tony as I've done before as well. So.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
Just a practical point, how many stalls have we got access to? If there's a massive flood of interest.
That is true.
15 stores.
Yeah, we could
About
probably
that.
push 19.
Okay. Well, that'd be nice if we got those built, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That transforms the area out here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But also, if more people are interested, the meeting will be a good indication. And do you know what I mean? If there's 30 people interested, then I suppose you've got to support the community. We just get some more stalls.
Yeah, no,
Great idea. But the fish man comes every week. Will the free 6 months apply to him as well?
I think it should apply to everyone. I
If
don't
it goes through that.
when he's been so loyal, I think it would be wrong to give to someone new and not to him. I think it should be a blanket from this period, market stalls
If we
are
look at it
free.
as a relaunch of the market area,
Yeah.
people like himself who have been so loyal should benefit from it perhaps more than anyone.
Yeah.
and I think, to be honest, as you develop this and take them to come back with aims, objectives, scope, brief, financial implications, but we are trying to be more transparent, we're trying to be more professional, and as long as we can communicate that to the public and to full council as well, then the best thing to do, and we'll come on to projects in a minute about how we want to take those forward. So they are project-led, monitored, reviewed, risk assessed from those things. So, but brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Okay, moving on to 5C, decoy comment. Okay, as an update, I'd sincerely like to thank Brecon County for this and put it on record. The bid for the funding of roughly £21,000 was approved to implement access improvements to decoy comment. So that funding has been secured. And again, sincerely, and others as well, thank Brecon Council for that and cooperation. In terms of status, a topographical survey has been undertaken. Both Councillor Westby and himself met the surveys on site 3 weeks ago. Just to confirm the extent of the survey, what we wanted and what have you. That report should be coming back in the next few days or week or so. I'll chase them up tomorrow. And then once we've got that, Andy's kindly offered to do detailed design and the access improvements. There's 2 things. Once we've got that design, we can bring it back to this committee if you want to have a look at it, or through the subcommittee of the sports and social community facilities, which I know Karen and also Mary is heavily involved in. Kind of got like subgroups going within subgroups at the minute, which is fine. You know, that's how people want to work it, to comment on it, and then we'll have to go out to tender to contractors to build it. Obviously, we'll seek minimum 3 quotes if we can. So that has been progressed. In terms of actions on self, previous meetings, I did meet trustee of Norfolk Wildlife Trust a few weeks ago. They're very keen on discussing decoy common, but also the linear park and the wider green infrastructure strategy that we're talking about. And they'd like to meet on, they've just appointed a new chief executive of Norfolk Wildlife Trust, so I think we're just allowing a bit of time for that person to get bedded in. But quite happy to meet at Decoy Common and meet people who want to have discussions with them about how they can be actively involved with not only Decoy Common but Atterbury, because what they see it as is, you know, a huge challenge but stroke opportunity. We've got significant growth on an existing town that's limited in many ways, and it does act as a case study of how you do things to integrate wildlife and natural resources and everything else into that. So they're very open to those discussions. So I'll follow that up. Obviously, I can't make any decisions or recommendations, but try and arrange a meeting with them. Obviously, we'll all be invited and perhaps invited to everyone else's discussion in due course.
I think it would be very helpful if other people could be involved in a meeting, and if it was not just a one-to-one with you and the CEO, because there are hundreds of questions to be asked. Absolutely, masses of questions.
Yeah.
Can we not ask them to attend one of these meetings, like a AMP meeting of me?
Yeah, if that's what you want. I'll get in touch and see what forum they'd like to attend, but the bottom line is very open, wanting to actively be involved, which is massive plus, and then we'll just manage it through.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Like a lot of these things, it probably won't happen overnight, and progress will take time, but the key to it is doing that and then trying to get these things.
Just as an aside of interest, are you aware there's new sewer going in from the existing sewer works down beyond West Car Road on the river there, and which is going through to the new housing bit, and there's a huge, there is a considerable ecological survey taking place on that in about 3 weeks' time. It might be worth appointing to access the results of that as well. And although it's not directly involved in the present plan, I think at a later stage when we're doing linear park further development, it would be useful to have access to that survey. It's being run by Savills.
Yeah. Well, those surveys will be public documents anyway, as part of planning commission's planning.
That's fine. Good. That's just to see.
But part of the wider, as you might say, of taking the bigger green infrastructure strategy, it's one of the things we want to discuss with Brecon in terms of working together and having access to information. So no one's coming into this and starting to reinvent the wheel. There's an awful lot of information that's already being done. It's just taking the projects and ideas we've got, looking at what we've got, what we haven't got, where's the gaps, do we need to fill it? yes, so,
And learning from other people's groups as well. There's lots of these groups around in the county,
there's lots of,
all of whom have got good ideas and work A, with their councils, and B, with volunteer groups. We can do it, I'm sure.
yeah, it's a big job.
But it's not insurmountable.
It's not insurmountable, but it's a big job, and it takes time to have the initial meeting, to have another initial meeting, to have another initial meeting to get the momentum up. But I can assure you, you know, we are trying hard to do.
Okay.
So that's the updates on Decoy Common. Hopefully, I can't put a timescale on it, but if it can be done before the end of this year, that'll be good. But let's just get the survey back, look at detail design, get your approvals, get it out, see where contracts are available. Okay, thank you. London Road. I'm looking at Karen here, because Nicola's not here, but there's been an awful lot of work done by so many people behind the scenes. It's on the subgroup, it's absolutely fabulous.
So we have within our subgroup, another subgroup, if you like. So we're kind of divided, and there's a group of mainly, I would say, perhaps young mums. So focusing on London Road parking in particular, and some other open green space areas. So there's not a specific update per se yet, but they are working on the needs, I suppose, and trying to get an up-to-date picture of what those needs and wants are, building on what's already been taking place in the past, and discussions within our sub-committee group meeting to talk about how we can best move forward, basically.
I mean, there's been an awful lot of work and energy being put in by those people.
Yeah,
I don't
and I think
want to embarrass them, but one of the things they're doing is a survey,
yes,
an online survey that's going out to everyone, not only the needs or aspirations for London Road, but the general wider open spaces we've got. So it's capturing all those other areas as well, and you know, that information is valuable for projects going forward. But they've done a fabulous job, and I think, to be honest, you know, people are recognising that these things don't happen overnight, and when it's based on volunteers doing stuff, things don't happen as quickly as we want it to. But it is moving. We'll get there. I'm sure the outcome is super.
it's moving, and there's lots of communication, which is also good, outside of even that subcommittee group. So lots of people have put in touch with the right people to move forward.
And what, sorry, Taylor, and what I'd like to add, and you know, I'd like this recorded, is that survey, the initial survey that they want to do is identifying what groups, no matter what those groups are, be it youth, be it sport, be it leisure, be it elderly, and what have you, care and what have you, is going out to identify just what voluntary community groups, clubs, whatever, are currently operating in Naspers, what their needs are, what their wishes are, so we get a full picture of as a community. Was it, you know, people want? Yeah. So Tristan, no, sorry, Taylor.
You go.
last. That's okay.
Okay,
I
Tristan.
was just looking at the minutes, and it says it was suggested to allow 4 weeks for alternative consultation with a proposal brought to council within 2 months, and I just wondered how that still fitted with what we just heard.
But last time we had the conversation in the meeting, I think we were looking for an early September for when the survey goes out. So that is broadly in line where we are on that.
So the consultation starts in September?
Yeah, it's a 3 week survey period that we're going to do that. Am I right in saying that?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused because actually we've got a survey that's gone out already, haven't we, for the sports and sports group? So that's kind of
It's the one for the player.
specific one. I think that's still being developed. So yes.
Hopefully that'll be finalised, then we'll get that.
So just to reaffirm timescales, what are we thinking? Because obviously September's next month.
Yeah. They were hoping to get it done by the end of the month to go out in September when the kids go out to school.
and then have it back within 3 or 4
3
weeks. I
weeks,
think.
that's, yeah. So in the 4th week, we'd be analysing the data and putting the proposal together on the back of that. That's right.
So October
so-
you'd have,
That's what that.
We'll have the date
yeah.
back.
What I'd like to caution on this is, I know we throw dates out. You know, I want it optimistically, and we're all optimistic. We all try and do the right things, but when it is based on voluntary work, life gets in the way. These things slip, and that's not criticism on anyone. I know that the chair of the group is always apologetic of, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, if I'm on life gets in the way, this is what happens. So until we get to a stage where a brief scope project is agreed and then becomes, I'm going to say professional, I don't mean that in any shape, way, form, but people have been appointed, we've got fixed timescales. That's fine, the best, everyone's trying to do the best they can.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see this, if we got a delay, because
But one of the actions from the last meeting wasn't it, to sort of formalise it, the plan.
hey,
Yeah, so fully supportive of what's just been said about the survey in September and proposals coming back in October. Is the survey just online?
I think it's being emailed to as many groups. That's how we've done the original survey.
Is this
and then,
the part one as well?
yes, so that's, I'm not sure is the answer.
I've got a bit more information.
Oh, okay, you might have more
Sorry,
than me.
yes.
no, you go first, and I'll.
No, it's, the initiative one was a bit more specific because it was to the groups. The second one's a bit more broad to be with general public and residents. So it is going to be available via email to groups to disseminate to people, but it's also going to be online via social media, which is going to be part of the task that we've got at the moment. But it is also looking to do a physical survey in the locale of it as well. So there's going to be these 3 tiers that we're working on.
Okay, I just asked because obviously I was very quick to criticise obviously how things were done last time around, and the fact that the consultation was, do you know what I mean, advertised 4 days in advance of it, and that I was very concerned about the public turnout and representation that we then received. And having gone to London Road shortly after, how 3 members of the public that live in the vicinity come to me and asked me about it because they were unaware. And I think as much as it's obviously great to have the groups involved and we want to hear what they think about our open spaces, I think for people, especially that live in the area, I think residents first and foremost are the most important. And I think that they need to have their representations made. And I think that a lot of the people that live in that area, maybe online might not be the best way, so maybe a leaflet drop or something, a poster up in shops in the town, or something in the EDP, a little write-up about it. Do you know what I mean? Make sure, I mean, we've just had this with the parish poll, Chris.
Make sure everyone knows
It's
about
not
it.
well advertised. We need to make sure it's so well advertised, not a single person misses it. It needs to be, do you know what I mean? We need it.
Okay, can I just show you on that? So the last few months I've been in correspondence with a resident that has got specific issues, and I've been out and met them, what have you, and I have said that you will be consulted on this. And it's back to the events group. When we look at how do we communicate, not everyone has a computer, not everyone has the internet, and it's looking at all media these days, twice then, such as letters through the door. As we've discussed with Actual Matters, then people like physical communication as well. So that is, and also as we go forward with all projects, back to that subgroup we mentioned, how we communicate. We're going to have the standard of the town council, how we communicate, how we consult, how we get things done, how do we receive responses.
I know.
So it is there, but again, it's back to ones that we've got to do this and rely on it and everything else.
And I know Phil brought this up at full council. It was our last meeting, someone asked and it was brought up about the newsletter. This is exactly why we need one.
No, exactly.
This is
absolutely.
Did you know what the new subcommittee that's going to be coming in are going to have a lot to do? You know, seriously, they're going to have a big list of things. And this is one of those urgent ones that will need attention pretty well straight away. But the Apple Day and a few of bits and pieces. But disseminating information, public information to the public and gaining that back is going to be, a significant part of that role, particularly initially as we get up to speed. But yes, the online survey is going to be for 3 weeks. There are going to be periods towards the end of that when we make it the physical one, once that has given time for that information to be made. So these are going to be like, here's a few days notice, we're going to meet you there. There's going to be plenty of notice given. Sorry, Vera.
That's all right, I don't mind. Really, on a theme, please, can we make sure this stays on track? You know how I feel about London Road, and we keep putting it back, and I would be on everybody's back because, and I'm glad to hear you say this, Mayor, that it's urgent, because it is urgent, and I'm quite happy to stand in the location and do another survey there like I did before. Quite happy to do so, but I do think it's one of the things that has been promised and promised and promised, and we haven't fulfilled that promise in any way, shape or form.
At the last meeting, we, are able to explain why that hadn't and why we're doing it differently. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. And that applies to all projects. I think as a learning curve, and hopefully when we get a new town clerk, because a lot of stuff that's being done by councillors, you could argue should be done by staff. Existing staff totally overworked at the minute, and so we're all firefighting and doing an exceptional job. And if we do want to be a professional council going forward, there's a whole raft of admin, management, working things we need to look at. Or have we got resources to do what we want to do? And if we haven't,
we need to get them. I'm sorry, if we haven't got resources, we need to do something.
Absolutely, and if we haven't, we say we haven't. You can't get them. You can't get them the best. To be honest, below aspirations. But we have got high aspirations. We feel we can do an awful lot. And sometimes that gets checked in terms of reality. So, again, publicly, I want to thank everyone that's been involved so far, that have got involved and doing their best and trying to get things moving. So, yes.
And somebody that's used the London Road field for, well, it was a field, for 40 years and brought children and grandchildren up on it, I don't think you've got a clue what it's used for. And I think just by talking social media, you're missing the whole point. I'm very pleased to hear you all say you're going to leaflet. I would no more think of looking on social media to see what's happening in London Road. And I'm elderly, all right, but I've got a computer, I use it, but I don't use it for that sort of thing.
No.
And I don't think any of the residents around there do or are aware. No. And I think it's terribly important to actually leaflet people and not just do it on one day, perhaps look for a longer period. But whatever happened last time, a lot of people spent a lot of time on it, and it's been a kind of wasted effort. Let's ensure this time that it's really clear of how you're going to do it, and it's of use at the end of the using. But there's a lot of issues on that field and things that could be developed in a very good way. It's a very nice space, and an awful lot of people use it. And you'd be surprised how many, right from the hinterland behind us in Westgard, right onto the whole estates around that. And it's a godsend for children.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to recreation ground.
Yes. Okay, this is one of those visionary things that leads on from London Road. London Road and Andy can come and obviously prioritise before then. But the recreation ground will be following on, in part from the information that we gather through the surveys that we're able to do both in person and online to get the broadest sweep that we can. And so much of what Nicola and Karen's groups have been doing is giving us some raw data and information so we can start tailoring these to be used by the community in the best fashion. So,
I was just going to say, the plan that we had drawn for the recreation ground, the existing plan, you know that is? Yeah. That was done in 2018. Is that being used in what's now happening? Because actually, personally, I thought that was quite a good one.
Right. Strangely enough, I think in the first place.
And
it's
also,
told us.
I think not to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we've already got one drawn for London Road.
Yeah.
We've already got this one drawn. I think not to use it at all then means all of the taxpayers' money that went into them, which was thousands, is then being completely wasted. Even if it's just used as the basis, the foundation for what you build on top of that.
That's kind of how
it has to be used, because otherwise it's money burnt.
Get the point, and that's where the difference of opinion is going to be coming in. It's going to be used as a consulting document in the sense that, you know, here is one idea. It gives a basis of conversation. If you've got something in front of you, you can start talking about, then you can start picking it apart and remolding it. So in that capacity, yes. But really what we're looking for is, for this project, I know that Ed and Andy are particularly working hard on Decoy Common. We've got Nicola and Karen Neighbourhood working on London Road. It's going to be focusing on there. We're looking for someone to really take the lead and set up a group on this one as well. So
can I just say,
sorry,
I know she's not on the AMP committee, but I know that Councillor Lane has some very good ideas about the development of the recreation ground.
Yeah. Can I just? Sorry.
No, go on, carry on.
All I was going to say is, you're right to point out we did do a master plan for gamers.
Gamers, no, is that
recreation ground. We were trying to look at, but recreation ground. I mean, again, from a professional point of view, the idea of doing the master plan is you identify what are the known issues at the time, what's the opportunities, what could you do. It's not a detailed design plan. And I think what Phil's trying to say is, same with London Road, you know, we've got an initial idea of a plan. It's looking at that and saying, well, does it still stand? As things moved on, it provides ideas, and you then refine it to come up to a detailed plan. So all studies, it happens with 4,000 houses, a master plan was done, it's refined, and quite often it never looks like what it did at the beginning. But the key thing is take that information, use it, take on board what the concept was, what you're trying to do, what your aims and objectives are, and refine it. So I certainly don't want it to be seen as, yeah, we spent some money, we've ripped it up, it's gone in the bin. It's not. It's taking that, but new ideas come in, new things happen, and build it up. It's never a one-hit study on these things and on the side of it. So just trying to give some assurance to the rest of the committee members and public that it's not money wasted in any shape, way. It's started that debate, and the debate changes over time and things change. So, Vera, sorry, and then Mary.
Well, I would like to take the lead on the recreation ground. I think I spend more time there than anybody. I speak to the parents that are on the park. I speak to the youth that are sitting there. And I promised them in September we'll have a meeting with other councillors to actually discuss what's what. So I've got quite a good rapport with them, as well as, you know, school children and parents that are over their younger ones. So I'd like to be very involved in the recreation ground.
Yeah, it's all well noted.
Just two things with reference to the recreation ground. Are there any covenants on it, as it was a gamer's gift, I believe? No?
No, that would be Games Field.
No,
really,
recreation ground.
Oh, okay.
Recreation ground was given by Tour and Bison, I think.
I just wondered, I don't know. But
There are, I can't remember the details, there are issues with it, hence the football club needs to move, because they can't do what they want to do. And again, part of taking the project further from the initial master plan is land ownership, any constraints on there, and you start going through the process of what can you do, what can't you do, and then you start working.
Right.
Projects.
And the other thing is the access via the Commonwealth Hall car park. Is that set in stone, or stuff may happen that it might not be possible to use that gate?
Well,
we are aware of that.
Oh yeah, oh, that's okay then. Just being discreet.
I don't want bring that up in this meeting.
No, I'm just generally asking, is it?
But again, in terms of master plan or concept design, stroke master plan, stroke project, all these issues of who owns the land, can you do what you want, what can't you do, can you access it?
Right.
If you can't access it, you can't run it, and therefore the project dies. So it's all these methodical, and Andy knows as well, it's the, flood, drainage, UNEC, power,
Yes, I
environmental,
wouldn't want
noise,
to
what have you. So,
a dump on anything, but I just, before we start, let's make sure it's everything's in order.
And all those things are done at the very beginning, saying, is this safe to do the next stage?
Yes.
Yes, no. So,
Okay.
sorry, Andy.
I'm just wondering what form the master plan is in at the present time. Is it electronic or paper?
It's electronic, it's on the town council website.
Yeah.
There is an electronic.
PDF.
If we all want a
Yeah.
link, I can send that to everyone.
PDF, but we
I
don't
have it to hand.
have,
You're not on the
we haven't got CAD ones. But it is conceptual at this stage.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing is I'd like to get involved in the skate park. Because I've got professional knowledge
That's
in
what
that.
we need to do at this moment, because we've got the other projects
before.
kind of moving. What I want to do is get this project now in the pipeline to start moving, so we need to assign leads. I take on board what you said about Debbie. This isn't going to be, shall we say, isolating of anybody who wants to be part of this, and the wider groups with the sports groups want to be engaged in this and feed into it. But it'd be good if someone at this table took the lead, because one, you're on the AMP committee, which means you can bring it directly into the meeting and make the proposals that we need to. The second thing is, if we seek the support of the expertise around the table and those subgroups are connected to it, we start then immediately tapping into the wealth of knowledge that we have, and it means the delivery of the system is going to be better, more aligned to what the groups and the community need, and it always comes at a better value because you're not having to chop and change later to make up things that go or haven't been considered on. So absolutely, Councillor Westby with the skate park, and that is one of the big tickets. But just before I hand over to Taylor, this is going to be a staged approach to the recreation ground. It doesn't mean we're looking to do everything at once. There are some very, I'll say, pressing needs, like the skate park, the children's play area, and one or two other access things that we need to work on. There are longer term ones, such as the football club. And we are not going to try and seek to do everything at once. And with regards to the football club, we wouldn't dream of starting that conversation without having the integral part, the football club, as that conversation, and having a look at alternatives that become part of that master plan. But the first stage, in the brief, I wanted to get an agreement on tonight as a part of a mini proposal to put together, was to do that first initial stage. So Taylor, and then I'll...
Yeah, it's just, obviously, when we're talking about entrances, I think that is maybe not something to worry about too much, because I think the rec has 5.
It does have a lot of it.
So I feel like, one shouldn't kill us. But what I was going to say is, obviously, the plan that we already have there, obviously, I'm fully aware we're going to look at it, build on it. But I think, obviously, it does take into account, obviously, the play area. There's a second play area for older children. So there's 2 separate play areas. There's the skate park relocated, which is obviously what we want to do. And obviously the park field, where it's got the paths for access across and around the field. I do think it is a good basis. And I also think that as much as London Road is a priority, because the money is sat there waiting to be spent, and it's took us a long time. I mean, for 2 years, I think myself and Vera have been push with London Road. So, but I do think as well, when we're talking about the skate park, I know that recently we've been saying, next year we'd like the delivery of the new skate park.
Yes.
Well, then we need to move quick for this, because there's no good. I know you just said we can do it in stages, but you don't want to put a skate park in the middle and then think, oh, no, actually, because now we can't do this. Like, it all has to, you have to have a vision that skate park's going where it should be going in this plan.
Exactly.
So we do need a plan, and we do need it quickly. It's not something that can wait and wait, because obviously otherwise this skate park's going to be put back further and further.
No, I agree with that, and that's why in the identification of the first stage of this, and where we need to focus is the viable locations for the skate park, so that they allow us maximum options later on, should we want to do other things. Assessment of the children's play area and existing facilities on there for families, you know, different age groups and demographics, and whether they need to be updated, changed, whatever else. The third stage is about really modernising and improving on what we have already there and delivery of the skate park. That's the first scope. The second stage of this, which we can then brief up tighter once you've had the initial stage conversations, is about the football groups and other bits and pieces. But for the first stage lead, it is about skate park, play equipment, general site layouts to ensure that we allow maximum flexibility going forward.
Can I just check that in these stages of development that the current two full-size football pitches will be untouched until such a time that we can?
Yes, because, you know, as we've had conversations about, any of the alternative sites that we're looking at are not going to be deliverable in the next 12 months, 2 years, maybe 3 years. We are talking longer term on this with those sites becoming available. So we need to have access to those sites now to be used. And that's where you're able to feed that information in from doing surveys and from directly speaking to the clubs involved. That this is what we need, so it becomes sacrosanct. That's what we need. Outside of those areas, what can we do? And that's the extra part.
And the part between the clubhouse and the pitches, is there something earmarked for that in the short term, in terms of obstructing the?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
But that is part of the first stage, and that's part of the conversation.
It's back to, you know, the master plan we've got at the moment, what do we want to do, what does that look like? It's the plan for the whole area. So who want to use it, what your needs are. Those needs are not going to change until you've got an alternative site, and that's a different discussion that's going on, you know. And this is where all the bits of the jigsaw, it's a bit like SimCity. You can imagine, you're moving bits of the jigsaw, or first of all, you're identifying what they are, and then you're playing a game of what can I move, when can I move, how do I move it, what does that look like? So you've got that longer term plan. That's how it works.
Yeah,
basically. So
it's making sure
you won't be compromised, you won't be constrained, you won't be.
It's the delivery on things like the skate park, and we use that because it's a bit of a headline thing that we're focusing on. But it's a delivery of that without impacting the immediate needs, even though we recognise longer term there are going to be other options available to us. So that's in a nutshell. So we need to appoint a lead. Vera has very kindly offered that. Vera, you know, obviously, as many people as you can gather around you to focus on that, like Councillor Westby and others that have been identified. The sports group particularly, the communication with the existing tenants to the site and users of the site is the very top of the list of the conversation. As long as we get this moving, then you can start bringing back proposals on how we move this forward. To the meeting. So when we're discussing it next month, you said, we've done this, this and this. And the initial feedback is, we're looking at doing this. And then we can start progressing it forward.
I think we've got to have a skateboard park right in the middle.
Okay, so to summarise, taking the recreation ground as a project, and we'll come on to how we're going to manage projects under item 7. But the suggestion at the moment is Councillor Dale leads that, and to do that, you need to also start developing with other councillors and working through the subgroup of interested participants to develop a brief and a scope of the works that you intend to do. So is the proposal, let's split in 2 parts. One, Councillor Dale takes the lead on this with the support of anyone that wants to be involved.
Please support.
So I guess you're proposing that.
Again.
Yep. And who's So councillor Westby, second. Everyone happy with that? Yeah. And then perhaps at the next meeting, come back with a timescale for a brief scope programme of what's going to be done, how's it going to be done, and when it's going to be done. And also budget required, because obviously we're going to have to start thinking these things are not free, these things are not done on a whim. There's quite a lot of, I dread to think, I've got a figure in my head already how much this is going to cost. But we need an idea of that so we can start looking at AMP budget, council budgets and what have you before anything goes further. And how you're going to communicate, consult, engage with the whole town on that. We'll leave aside, secondly, how we engage with Homes England, because that's a key part of it. So there's quite a lot of intricate project management going on here. So, yes, sorry, Tony.
Okay, so two things. Firstly, I did just send everyone the links for the recreation ground plan and the transport study, so you both have those for reading. And then secondly, I hate to be this person, I hate it, but I am. Obviously that was a proposal that we were made, it was seconded, and I feel like it was very sloppy voting, no offence, but I looked across the table and everyone was a bit like, and I was just like, can we, can we do it properly? Because
Good point, no, good point.
can't make decisions
No,
without, you know?
no, good point. Yeah. So if we can redo the vote, so proposed by Vera to take the lead on this project, and seconded by Councillor Westby. So those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. So good point. Thanks, John.
She keeps us right.
She does.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to
Speed ahead.
yes, sorry, Joe.
The problem 2 weeks ago, we had a full council meeting. Skate park to remove the ramp. It's still there.
Right.
The summer holidays are coming to close in about 2-3 weeks. If the ground staff haven't got time to do it, another one down. You loan me a grinder, and I'll take that.
Thank you, but we might take you up on that because
it's going to get no use.
no, to be fair, I had a conversation with Barry, head grounds person.
I went down and see Barry the other day, actually.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
It's harder to remove than we call it first falls. And it has been a challenge. So any assistance you can give, I'll discuss that with you afterwards.
Yeah, but I will need a grinder.
I can give
It'll have to be a Barry.
the council now have a battery grinder for you.
And you know, you're not going to stop hurting the surface, but it's not going to be used anyway. As long as you make it safe, flat, so they can't trip any.
Okay.
I should say you could have that up in under a day.
Can I suggest discussions are ongoing and come back to next full council in terms of here's an action plan of what's going to happen.
It's got to be done before next.
Sorry, yeah, Carol first.
It's already, oh, sorry.
Oh, thanks. Just on that, I'm kind of inclined to agree on the basis that it's not stopping the children going in climbing over the fence anyway, and they're climbing on various bits of our property in terms of trying to keep themselves amused in other ways. They're often on our containers, which is obviously a bit of health and safety. And I've seen them climbing over fences.
Noted, yeah.
Yes,
What I was going to say is it doesn't need to come back to next full council because the agreement's already in place to remove it. It's just now, obviously, it will be Joe removing it. Obviously, assisting groundsman rather than.
You know of any people that want to help me? Feel free.
I don't mind coming along. I'll bring a grinder too.
Grinder party.
Sorry.
That doesn't sound right, does it?
Well, sorry. With the kids, you know, that I've been without.
Yeah. Yes.
Just a real quickie. There was a child got cut on the swings or slide at 10:15 the other day, and it was repaired by the groundsman by 11:30. And I think that was exceptional. he came straight out and repaired it. So,
Could I just make a, a public note of thanks for our
Yeah.
staff at the moment. They've been working really well under very trying circumstances. We've been supporting them, we've been getting them better equipment and better facilities to work with. But I have to say they've been really good and very cooperative.
and I could write in our accident book, repaired by groundsman by 11:30 for the parent to see, which I thought was good.
Absolutely.
Well, excellent, actually.
Yeah, obviously.
Sorry.
So thank
No,
you.
no, thanks,
I
thanks for bringing that up. It does need to be recognised. Work staff do really well. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 5F, Park Stroke Green Space Strategy. Now,
Sorry, me again. Yeah, coincidentally, I bumped into Mr. Hine today on the way to the shops, and he asked me about our open spaces, and was talking, because obviously it come up about the plans we've had done, and he's talking to me about Phil Doyle and Ian Barkley, and he's like, oh, he's done a few different plans, and I was like, no, just gamers, and it never materialised. But it did remind me that Phil Doyle actually had consultations the year before last on Norfolk Drive, Lomond Road and Signet, and I've never ever seen anything come back from it. Not a single thing.
Would have been paid for.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100% he was paid. Don't be silly. But I've never ever at the AMP or at council, and I've only missed one meeting since, which was last month's AMP meeting, is the only meeting that I've missed since he done it, and I've never seen a thing.
Okay, so what I'll do, I've been in touch with Mr. Dawn previously, particularly about London Road, so I'll just see where that is. I haven't seen
But
it.
consultations are done at those three sites.
Okay. But I'll also will check, looking at Anne, if anything's come through. We'll double check what's come through, if anything. First, I'll contact Mr. Dawn and I'll inform you of what the situation is.
Which feeds really nicely into this statement, because what we're looking to do is this next part, the F part, is the pipeline. So what is, we've got these projects here that we've got in front of us, and as they start to be delivered, what is going to be the next priority, which is going to be helped by Karen and her groups, so what they're doing with these surveys, then become the basis of the data of which of these areas, as well as communication that we get from our own ground staff as well, because they know the state of the equipment in each of these areas and where they're spending a lot of time to maintain them, or they're becoming perhaps not as safe or not as workable as they have been in the past. We're able then to make an informed decision. So this next part really is a wide scope of identifying what comes into the pipeline next and gets a brief ready for adoption as a project with a lead and a plan into the meeting. So it's somebody on the ground who's able to communicate with both staff, groups, committees, and just feed that all together into this. So we'd like a volunteer, as it were, to help in the organisation of that, because it's very hard when you've got your head trying to deliver one project to also get a mind to what's coming up next. So we need someone with a bit of further vision to look out for them.
What I'd like to suggest is, I've started the bare bones of the green infrastructure strategy anyway. We've been talking about for a while. What I think we'd like to do as a council is to have a catch-up with Breckland, particularly Homes England, because we want to get an understanding of what's happening there with the detailed master plan and the detailed planning. That can feed into it, but that green infrastructure strategy will provide that framework. We know what spaces we've got at the moment. It's then looking at other spaces and then talking with Environment Agency, I'll come on to that in a moment, Norfolk Wildlife Trust and others as to what we can do, and it feeds into that live document. So what I will do, I can even give you a structure of these are the things we'll look at, these are the things you need to do for green strategy, these are the requirements for open spaces, etc. Start filling that in. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, going back to what you just said about the fact that it's not looking at our open spaces and then looking at other open spaces or other green space. It's not our space, it's Breckland's, but with the S186 money, there's 70 or 80,000 pounds for Blackthorn Road. And obviously, I mean, that's got years before it's got to be spent, but that's money that's, again, sat there waiting for, obviously, a project to be identified. And I think there's another one for like Teasel or something nearby. The Teasel? It's something in that vicinity.
Teasel Drive.
Yeah, something like that, because it's got a little space on the corner. But that is, that's another one. So there's 2 additional spaces there that aren't ours, so it would take, obviously, you know, some communication, but there's money sat there available for them.
Which is why we need people like yourself, Taylor, really, looking at this and feeding that information in so we get it prioritised at the right time to feed into these projects. Because what I don't want to do is, you know, we work through these, we get to the end of it and then say, now what? What we want is one project jumps out, we get the next one feeding in, but that one's already been considered. So we're not starting completely cold. The due diligence has been done on it. We know if there's covenants on the land, we know where the money is, we know what the scope is we're working with. So these projects come in as hot projects, where we look then at delivering something on them, rather than starting it all again. So we could do with a group, but a lead particularly to start that process of lining all of those things up and seeing what do we own that we can work on, what don't we own that we can influence and have got money for to help and assist, like the S106, and then what additional land do we need to marry up with the information that comes back from the sports group. You know, we'll find those areas where we're missing the black holes, the biggest problems and projects that we've got. What have we got coming up that we can look at doing that? So that's a visionary part, but that's an important part of feeding into this more practical meeting. Yes.
I'm happy to put together a bit of a list or a short report for the next meeting, just to make some summaries of what you've just gone through. But it's not something I want to, it's because I feel like it's quite broad. That's not a lead I want to keep, but I'm happy to make the initial draft, an initial report for the next meeting.
So that give us a head start.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 6, donations of trees from Woodland Trust.
Okay, so I had a look at the leaflet. I think I sent it around to, well, I think I sent it around to everyone, did I? I think so. I personally favour the crabapple or the cherries, like something with fruit, because I think it's good for the animals. I think the birdies and stuff will eat it. That's just my personal preference. I'm happy for other people to go with others. Obviously, having looked at the plan for the recreation ground, there's, I think, like, it's over 30, there's over 30 new trees on that plan, which obviously, if that was something that we would, or something similar design we were going to go with, then that would kind of go in line with this, because obviously for the application, all we need to know is like where we're going to put the trees and that we've got the landowner's permission. So obviously any of the council owned open spaces is easy because we then have the permission. And so it's just where we're going to put them. I thought, well, that's already gives an indication of where those trees would go. So there's, I'll say there's 31. I'd have to have a quick count. Anyway, there's 31 trees on that. And also, I had a little walk around the churchyard, not churchyard, the cemetery the other night. And on the border from where the old part of the cemetery is to the academy, where like the long jump pit is in the back corner. I don't know if anyone else would remember where the long jump pit is. There's a gap in the hedge there, And I just think when kids are playing sports that side, it actually might be nice to have that infield so that there is like, do you know what I mean, a proper hedgerow to kind of, do you know what I mean, muffle the noise and keep the ambience of the cemetery separate to that of a busy school field. So I want some hedgerow there, please. And yeah, some
Well, you need to
trees
start
on the
making
back
plans
is
because you've
what I
got
was
October,
hoping.
November is the best time to put the hedgerows.
Dormant time, we want to be doing it before it starts autumn.
So some hedgerow there would be lovely. And then I think some trees on the recreation ground. But then that's also if we're going to go with a similar design to this, if it's going to be changed
Yeah.
completely, then
I
it's
just had a little look at the design, and one of the issues is that the football group of ours, you've just done a pathway right the way through their two football field. So they're not quite conducive to the existing use, as that's going to be a long-term aspiration for us to relocate. So there's going to be some change to this, obviously, this by necessity. But there are some good elements on there, and certainly having extra wildlife area on the parks that we have within the community is a big must. I would say that that's something that we're aspiring to, and we're looking at the game site particularly to make more of a wildlife reserve and preserve some of that as well. So yes.
yeah. Minus, I think it was, now I'm literally trying to go back and find it again. I think it's minus the 3 trees that go alongside the path that you just referenced. Yeah, there's 3 trees along that. Minus those 3 and the 2 just in front of the mother. The majority of them are to the edges.
Yeah.
So shouldn't conflict with anything that's currently happening or would happen in the future because they're to the edges of the field. So I think if we could do that, planting to the edges of the recreation ground with those new trees, and then like you say, if we are going to go for maybe apple trees, if everyone's in agreement, then we could put some in at gamers as well.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
I just wondered if that could be forwarded to me at some point. That
I didn't
Yeah,
have your email,
yeah.
so I would have sent it to you right now, but yeah.
Sorry, we'll do, yeah.
Thank you.
Do they
Yes,
all come in one go, or do we get them over a number of years, these trees? And how many do we get?
They come at once, but you can, I don't think you
There's
can only
different
apply
size of
once. I
packs
think,
you can get as
yeah,
well,
I think
isn't
you can apply as many times as
Do
you
you know what
like.
size they are? We can trust the shoppers for sending out things 12 inches high.
Yeah, they are.
Just
1 to 2 years
They've
old,
got
so
caught by their fall.
they will
Yeah.
vary. They can
They're-
be quite small samples. They could be
Yeah, hang on.
2 years is that.
not a lot, yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
that off the table.
And I hope they don't come with plastic thingies around them.
They have to.
No, surely plastic thingies, and they're not good for the environment. They need to be strong card or paper.
They're at nuggets and they're eaten.
I don't care, they're not good for the environment. Trees.
We'll leave that to the Woodland Trust.
Sure, the Woodland Trust.
No, they don't, I can assure you.
Okay, so, but on that, it just gives you an idea of, in principle, I'm all for that, and I'm very happy for that to happen. But some of the things you're going to have to consider, and this is where the bureaucracy sometimes, weighs you down, is the planting of those trees. We need to consider the eventual sunlight implication on the properties bordering that. And there's some of the little things that you've got to consider as you do it. I know it's exactly where the roots go and everything else. In principle, yes. We will probably just need to plan and consult a little bit more, but I'm all for us looking at doing that, yes.
Yes, something the Broad Authority did, which was very effective, was they advertised they wanted to plant along the trees, and they got people to come with their children and plant trees, and it made a really big event, and people care about the trees they plant. And in fact, I could name you about 20 trees that our own family planted in Attleborough, and the Scouts did it when Brecon gave free trees. I can tell you lots of trees that were planted then, and they actually, I know my son actually said, "Oh, that's the tree, we didn't know that."
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it makes
Really
well,
is
people and children treat them better.
Yeah. Very good idea. I think we should take it.
So good.
No.
Sorry.
I'm shutting up from the
Just as an alternative, I've recently bought some trees. I think they're called whips. Well, I'm no gardener, but they're just bare rootstock. I mean, the silver birches, they stood so high from the ground. They've doubled in height already in 6 months. They're £4 each.
So it's certainly within the scope of us to look at doing.
Yeah, I mean, whether local businesses might sponsor that as well. Just showing my age as well. I mean, just going on what Elizabeth said about communities planting trees, but when I was in primary school, I took part in something called Plant a Tree in '73. So I remember it quite well. So showing my age a little bit, but.
There's a very strong movement, perhaps you naturally or anyone else will tell you, that the advantage of buying woodland trust trees is that they're guaranteed disease-free and they're natural stock from this country. An awful lot of other people selling trees are trees that you don't know, sounds awful. You don't know where they've come from. They may be stock from abroad, which have been introduced, and several tree diseases have been introduced because of that. And I couldn't I got very fed up with the Woodland Trust because we just planted a wood, well, just spinning, saying wood's a bit grand, the spinning. And they would not doing any packs for private people. They will for people like a council, like but they weren't very cooperative. But we did know that they were guaranteed stock. So we ended up getting trees from them. But
The ones I bought was from a tree nursery in Felthorpe.
Yeah.
Common.
And not all tree nurseries grow their own trees, is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the ground, but.
Well, I got some that works for natural England.
Yeah,
It's very against.
I'm no gardener.
Okay,
So
Karen, have you got a point or?
sorry, is that right? Or do you need us to pick what trees, or are you picking what trees?
No. I think that's what we need to make the application. We obviously want the things we need to know. These are the only things we need to know. Is what trees we would like, and the land we would like them on.
Yeah.
Because if we've identified the land, obviously, if it's our land, we know we own it, we can then make that application. So we can say, I don't even think it has to be specifically, we're going to put it in, like, do you know what I mean? This
You can
part.
just say a site.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think it needs to be like, we're going to put this one at the entrance of Gamers Meadow. Like, I think it could literally be, this is the site, we own that site, and these are the varieties of trees that we like.
Yeah.
As soon as we know that, we can start our application.
Because I think normally their trees, they come in mixed packs anyway, don't they? I don't think, is it normally a case like
I think they do, you can get them in mixed packs, but also, I think,
Or would you say, we want 100 hawthorn?
I think you can
So
be more
just from
specific.
this, what's the action? Is it you submit an application?
Well, the two
Identifying
sites
and
that I
checking
would
those.
say as Gamers and the Rec, they're
Yes.
the two sites that I'd like to see the planting on. And I had always said the fruit bearing trees, so whether they're apple or cherry, were my preferences, just because I think they'll feed the animals.
Okay, Karen,
Can the subgroup have a say in where they
Yeah,
go in relation to the current sporting and potential?
it should really go through the subgroup, so if you can get the details on this is your idea, this is the plan area. Let those people have a look at it and comment on it. And if trying to speed the process up, assuming there's no adverse comments, are you requesting to get approval from this committee?
I want the
then put
approval so we
submission in?
can start the application
So,
for the trees.
okay,
And then once we've started the application, we can then speak to the subgroups and say, okay, these are our two sites, what's your do's and don'ts? Like, do you know what I mean, what's your preference? Where's your preference?
Mary, sorry, Mary.
Sorry,
first, and
not
then-
to you there.
No, I was just going to propose that we go with Taylor's trees. Yes.
I was just
And then
going,
you move it forward, yes.
I was only going to remark on the irony of putting apple trees back into games, having grubbed up all those trees all those years ago. Not that I have anything to do with that, but it does seem a touch ironic, but a good idea to put apples.
Okay, so do you want to?
Yeah, while we're
Suggest a
obviously talking
proposal?
about, that is my proposal. My proposal is to go with the fruit bearing trees to be planted on the recreation ground and gamers, the application to be made. And then once that process starts, to consult with the subgroups and the users of those sites as to where about they will go within that site. And also hedgerow cemetery. And I've already got, like, in my head, I know exactly where they need to go.
And with hedgerow on the cemetery, if you can just consult with the ground staff team to make sure whether that is appropriate and right.
There's already hedgerow there, so it wouldn't be an issue at all. There's already hedgerow there. It just needs infilling because it's, there's a break.
Sorry, can I just, sorry, Sue, could you kind of get that?
I kind of got it.
Okay.
I will.
She's got it recorded.
I will look at the recording.
Good, so can I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second it.
Can I just make a quick comment? That actually most of the trees, although not traditional human edible ones, most of the trees on this list are actually fruit bearing.
Okay.
In one shape or form, although they don't necessarily say. I mean, there is the icon that says that they're great for birds. That is a mix of, because they are great for nesting for birds, but also great for fruit. So, for example, blackthorn, that's your slow berries, that's another fruit one. You've got your cherries, your crab apples, your dog rose, another one. So there is several on here, Taylor, that are fruit producers.
As long as they have fruit on them. I don't
But
really
how
like
about,
it.
Okay, sorry, can we
the
have,
proposal is for fruit bearing,
Mhm.
so we can plug into the expertise
Yeah.
later.
sorry.
Well, it was on that, so I'm no expert. I guess you're the most knowledgeable person in the room.
Possibly.
I mean, I don't know whether there are implications with regards to planting a tree next to a particular type of tree that you're not supposed to do. I don't know whether you're going to attract certain insects, animals, birds that have a knock-on effect. Do we not need, great, we get all the trees, yes, we want the trees, yes, we want to plant them, but do we not need to get a little bit of expertise to find out that we're planting the right trees in the right place?
And the right conditions,
outlook?
sunlight, what the wind conditions are like on that area.
Everything.
Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just bear with me 1 second.
I would have thought there would
I
have been
will.
some advice.
Yeah.
On Saturday the 21st, so this Saturday coming, I should be seeing Neil Thomas. Yeah. And so will Councillor Ellis. So we could speak to him then.
Yeah.
He is a tree surgeon, and I'm sure he will be happy to give some advice.
Can I then make an addition to your resolution that on conversation with the tree surgeon, you then decide which would be the most suitable varieties for for the sites?
Yeah. Well, we can still go with fruit bearing, can't we? At this point, we will say fruit bearing. Myself and Joe will speak to Neil Thomas on Saturday. I will email Anne on Monday and say, these are the ones he said would be best.
Sounds good.
Good idea? Perfect.
First one we're talking about.
So that's a proposal.
Yes.
Seconded
Second,
by
yeah.
you. Can we have a vote? Please raise your hand. All at once. Thank you very much. And I thank you again for doing this. It's again, it's starting to move things, so thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 7, any other business. I've got 2 or 3 items, but let's go around the table first. So Taylor first, and then Tristan.
Okay. My one, again, does have something to do with trees, coincidentally, and this is that in the churchyard, in St Mary's Church, there is a holly tree that is over the ash graves, the little flat ones, and there was a gentleman.
Garden for members.
Yeah, there's a gentleman that used to go clean his wife's grave quite regularly because the holly tree drops stuff all over it, makes a mess of it, and it's often quite untidy, that area. So he has maintained it himself for a long time now. He now cannot drive anymore, so can't bring his tools there to do it. So can we please have a weekly inspection or something, or the ground staff just rake it up once a week, just to make sure that it's nice and neat and tidy, because I think obviously they are people's loved ones. It does need to be shown like, do you know what I mean, the respect that it deserves. And I think 10 minutes raking it up like once a week would just, do you know what I mean, it would satisfy this poor man that I feel incredibly sorry for. He actually asked me if the tree could be taken out, but obviously it's a mature tree, and I think you can't do that. And the alternative is that we just make sure it's tidy.
To be fair, we've in the last week received an email from Reverend Jackson complimenting what the council has recently done.
I have been there and checked it a couple of times, and it has, when I've been there, it has been tidy.
Really done it. It is
But
a priority, but I can certainly make it.
This man, I can't, like, do you know what I mean, I just don't want to hear from him because he's upset because he's gone there and it's not been tidy. So can we just make sure that there's like a weekly inspection of that area just to make sure it's kept on top?
Yeah, in fact, part of what they're doing at the moment is having an inspection schedule. Barry's working to put together with the staff that he's got. So they'll be inspecting each area, so I can certainly mention that too.
I just think, yeah, I just feel sorry for him.
Okay.
That's his wife.
Thank you.
I have to say that that's an absolute, couldn't be better timed you bringing that up, because that ties in exactly with how you choose the trees you're going to plant. A holly is notoriously bad at continuously dropping leaves throughout the year, always causing a nuisance. So you were talking about ones around the cemetery. I would suggest you avoid putting any hollies down there. Although you do need them in a long hedge because they stop the witches coming along. Because a witch can't run along a hedge if there's a holly tree. That's a bit of country law for you.
Okay, thank you. Can't remember who else had. Karen, did you have your hand up?
Well, I'm hoping that you might bring up something that I'm here to discuss.
Yeah, but you bring it up now. Yeah,
Okay.
brilliant. Yeah.
So, as part of our subcommittee community facilities, one of the main things that I'm specifically hoping for, along with the Athletics Club and any other sporting group actually, or any other group who physically use gamers, might be supportive of us revisiting floodlights on the existing poles that are on both sides of the field. This is to extend the availability for our club's use of that space, as at the moment none of us can use it in the winter months, and that would obviously open it up for other members of the community as well in terms of using the gym equipment. Essentially, the families that are waiting for their children to train with other siblings using the park, and obviously dog walkers didn't necessarily go there and get back. So we met with one specific electrician, and we've got a proposal that we've kind of discussed briefly that we'd like to put here to the community in terms of having another survey electronically, and hopefully maybe we might have to start from scratch, but just to explore what the existing infrastructure is in terms of electricity supply, to have that revamped moving forward, because at the moment those clubs are having to move out of town to train in winter months, specifically on football or winter sport, and the lack of indoor facilities for athletics club is also a bit of an issue.
So the proposal from the Sports and Community Facilities subgroup is to request access onto gamers to UKPN to do what hopefully will be an intrusive survey, just to understand what's there, what's not there, and then take it from there in terms of what improvements could be done. So as it is,
what's there,
council lands, we just felt to be transparent, would this committee be happy for that survey to be undertaken and the UKPN to have access on that? Yes.
As someone who's tried to do exactly that years ago, there are documents out there, and I've got the council definitely does have them, that might be of some help as well moving forward, but fully support that proposal.
Yeah.
So you're saying the survey has taken place previously?
Yeah.
Well, if we do that short circuits this whole thing very quickly, doesn't it?
It would help.
And also, I suspect it would have been UKPN anyway. But I think the principle is for you to open a discussion with UKPN. Can you do this? And it's rightly so. You might come back and say, yeah, we've already got record, or we've done it.
So we'll have a look as a council to see if they've got the documents already, because that may prevent us needing to ask for the survey, because we'll have the information. And once we know what load or what supply we've got there, then we can determine whether it's sufficient for LED lights or some sort of new lower energy ones to go up in there. But yes, let's have a look at that. But in principle, it'd be handy to have the agreement from the committee now to say, if we haven't got that, are they okay to get a survey? That's really what it is.
I know it's a bit bureaucratic, but let's try and.
So I'll be happy to second that proposal.
Okay, so Karen proposed it, Phil seconded. Show hands, please. Thank you very much. Do you want to bring the second one up in terms of the long jump?
Yes, so in conjunction with that, the athletics club would really benefit from a long jump pit, I think, which has been discussed in the past, which would run adjacent to the, I want to say, the furthest set of lights, which is in the dog off the league field. I don't know what to call it other than that. Just running in the kind of piece of land that's currently nature reserve, as mentioned before, so that can be used again.
It has been discussed with council previous time. So basically, what John, chair of the festival, wants to bring this back on the table. So come do this. So just within them.
I was involved in that as well, met with John over there with the clerk at the time. I think you need to go back and look at the minutes, what you agreed before, because in terms of the location, exactly where John wanted, that was all agreed. As far as I'm aware, you need to check all your.
I have had a look at this. Now,
and he spoke about having made sure it was covered up as well.
Yeah, what was done previously was it was thrown into the long grass by the council, who were waiting for the master plan for the site to be done before determining the location of the site, because it could change depending upon what the master plan was done. I don't think realistically that we are going to be doing anything in the short to medium term that's going to affect it. So I have no problem for that proposal to progress now, because it's pointless holding on for something that could deliver in 10 years' time, and you get all of that use out of it, and even then it may be in the right place and doing exactly the same thing. It's factored into it. Yeah, exactly. So,
Taylor.
Yeah, what I was actually going to say is that Phil's right. There was officially no resolution was ever made for the placement of it. Obviously, there was discussions about the long jump pit, but there was never a resolution as to where it would actually go. I feel that the first field rather than the second field would be a better place, just because if it's on that second field, it is going to upset people, a lot of people probably, because that will be, I think, perceived as, oh, this is the first thing that's happening, then it will be this, then it will be that. It's going to cause, I think, problems. So if there is a place on the top field where it could be put as an alternative, I would be more confident, more happy with supporting that. And actually, where the play area is at the moment, when you've got that and it's boxed in, and then you've got obviously the fence that comes the rest of the way, but obviously there's the play area, and then it goes in, and then it's obviously that long length. Could it not go in that empty void?
Not long enough.
Okay,
So that's been discussed, and that area is not long enough apparently for the requirements of the run up and the delivery of that in a safe way, especially with the fence there, from my understanding, no expert, but this is from the athletics perspective. I think the hope was that it would go between the running, where the running track is, and the 4 holes where the lights would be, which is all overgrown at the moment, where nobody walks anyway. So people walk their dog around the outside, or they use the main field, but they don't generally walk between the running track and the rest, because it's
left for biodiversity.
Yes.
just a quick one on this. I know that we've had conversations with our staff, and they've got lots of ideas of their own what they would like to see done on the sites to make it easier to maintain, open up all the things. And we've got the fence room down the middle of the gamers, which they would want to see back on as well.
Actually, I would agree with that sentiment, because often it's a little bit because it is a chore where that fence is with the string and stuff. It normally is a little bit overgrown and it is less tidy. If it was gone, then they could just mow it straight and it would look a lot
You
better.
could do more with the site with it. You'd open the site as well. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm not actually sure why that went in the first place.
they don't even know themselves. It was just put in. So I think, you know, as we're going forward and looking at that, it may pay for, in principle, to say, yes, we support this being done on a suitable location, being identified, but we can look at doing little things like the fence taken out that would then open up potentially new space.
I agree to a point. The only other point I wouldn't mind making is that we have obviously, I'm going to say the football field's a bit controversial perhaps, but the football field where the current pitches are in use a lot of the time, Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, and the athletics are there at the same time on a Saturday morning and usually other field, and all of their operations take place on that field. They don't actually come over to the football side at all, not to say that they couldn't, it's just that pitches are marked and obviously a long jump pit may or may not encroach on what's currently there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Can I just do a long jump with my own AOB and
Yes,
then
sorry.
come back
Yeah.
because I've got to go to Lidl, so I shut. Sorry. Could you forward the details of the subcommittees, who's on them and in terms of reference? We did speak about this last meeting, but we haven't got anything. Just for transparency, so we all know what's going on in the news, where, and what they're doing. But otherwise, I have to do my apologies and go.
No, thanks, Tristan.
See you later.
Yes, Tara.
Can I suggest that perhaps before any decisions are made about this long jump pit, that perhaps the athletics academy, yourself, maybe you two, go down there and have a look and just see if on that first field there is anywhere suitable that would be agreeable that could be put forward as an alternative. I can't support it going on the bottom field, I won't.
I'll support you with that,
No,
Taylor.
I agree with that.
Yes.
It'll ruin the ambience of it. I think it's supposed to be wild, it's supposed to be biodiversity, it's supposed to be all of those things. You can't start putting.
If we start cutting away at those areas,
It can't happen.
It's not a permanent structure though, and I think it could be at any point removed.
I think we need to be realistic. The town has a deficiency in open space. The huge demand for facilities on those open spaces. You can't accommodate all of them.
Okay.
And I think this is where we desperately need that discussion with Brecon down Homes England in terms of phase one of the zoo. What is going to be put in there? Now, there's always been this discussion of what's the priority of the games, which one tries to do the master plan didn't get anywhere. If there is a need, and there does seem to be a need for more, and we're back to healthy lifestyles, activity, people, etc., going out there. If we can provide facilities, if there is no alternative, I don't think it's correct for us to say it can't go on that part of the field. And it's going to upset the dog walkers. We've been there years ago, and we've got what we're trying to do is develop that green infrastructure strategy. We do want to work with Norfolk Wildlife Trust, so we're not ignoring those things. What we're looking at is back to what can go where now, what happens longer term, and try and please as many people as possible. So,
I acknowledge there's the deficiency of space. I 100% understand that, but I think that is a shared use area, and you have to show them equal respect to all parties using that field. And to say that one would take priority over another, I don't think is fair. People, whether they just walk their dogs or not, they use that field, they love it, and that will genuinely upset them.
well, I don't think we're losing the field.
No, but it's not the point. That's not the point I'm trying to make. What I'm saying is you should respect what they want for that part of the field, like you respect what the sports people want for the other part.
Absolutely. Well, can I suggest, sorry Karen, you first, then dear, and then I'll
I was just
try
going
and
to say,
summarise.
obviously, a proportion of the families that use those facilities for sports also have dogs and also use it for their own recreational use at other times. But, would it help if we've got the measurements and specific requirements?
I think a site meeting as well with a few people.
Okay, can I, sorry, Barry, on you.
So it's been to devil's disciple. You're saying about healthy lifestyle,
Mm.
etc. Dog walking for a lot of elderly
Absolutely,
people is
absolutely.
recreation, it's healthy, they're out in the air, they meet friends, it helps with mental health. So you've really got to be careful and cater for everybody.
Well, this is the dilemma, and this is where life gets interesting. Kids probably don't walk dogs, therefore they need some excuse for exercise. That's a very generalised statement. So, and this is difficulty when we look at healthy lifestyles and all ages and all parts of the community, open, etc. It's a balance. So, can I suggest, and we can go around the houses on this, that Taylor, good suggestion. If we meet John on site,
Yeah.
and say, is there any other area on Gamers where this could go? Explore that. If there isn't, come back to this committee next time with, this is the site, these are the reasons why it's the only place on the site. Here's the benefits, here's the disbenefits, and we'll make a decision there. It has come to council previously, many years ago. It was agreed, so the principle is there. All we're doing is, let's say, sense checking it again. Bearing in mind, we're trying to benefit everyone of the community, but some people, we can't do it all the time unless we have all the facilities we desperately need in the town. That comes back into the future discussions of Homes England, the Sue, Target, and Brecon. Longer term, but let's look at what we can do to provide facilities now in the short term. So, yeah, go on.
I was just going to add that I am at Games an awful lot of my life, and that cohort of individuals who do walk their dogs of a certain age, or majority, walk around the outside of the perimeter. Very rarely do I see them in the area we're discussing. Very rarely, other than at the bench.
Yeah, and let's get on site, let's have a chat, let's put the option together, so the next meeting that we're having here, like Ed said, we can have a proposal that we can debate, vote upon, and prepare for full council approval, one way or the other.
So, yeah, sorry, Sarah.
I really do want to stress though that when you do have your site meeting, predominantly look at that top field where sports is already.
We'll look
that,
at
the other side, I still wouldn't support it, but that is an absolute last resort.
We'll look at the whole site and say the requirements of.
I have any other business as well.
Sorry, can.
I was just going to say, that when you look at this, can you sort of check covers, because it's going to have to be covered, and the covers I've seen are quite raised. People walking over there in the dark, who could be, you know, I think
There'll
we
be a
can
whole
make
risk
sure
assessment.
covers are low.
Will be a risk assessment. You could always potentially do stuff, can't we? We do dogs walkers.
In principle, just in principle, are you happy for us to have a look at the gamer site while we're just discussing, and that fence down the middle be removed at some point? Are you happy for us to have a discussion about while we're on the same site at the same day, have a discussion about that as part of that conversation?
Is that the fence that is infamously vandalised?
Yes.
Yeah. Fence that infamously set all the hassle going with the council.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Okay, so
I thought that was coming out.
Right, okay, so we'll do that. I'm conscious of time. So Karen.
Yeah, we're just going to clarify the fence is around the play area is staying, it's just that extra bit.
It's the extra bit that's just randomly there for some reason.
Well, it did go right the way up to the hedge line before.
The reason was to keep dogs off the sports pitches. Was the original reason.
I think that was actually after my child was knocked over by a dog, but I didn't actually, I want to stress that I did not ask for a fence.
I have any other business, and that is that down the Dell, we all know what the Dell is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, just checking. No? Okay, so the other side of the cemetery, there's like a little survey going. Yeah. So the Dell was obviously used predominantly, I would say, by the kids sitting down there after school, or by people walking their dogs, which is what I used to use it for, and I'd occasionally bump into someone else with their doggy there while I was there. And there was right down the bottom a nice big boulder for forever, for as long as I can remember. And one day I went there and it was just gone. It'd just been taken out. And when I challenged Gina about it, she said, it never come before council, no one ever made this decision, but when I challenged, it was said that it was removed because the geezer that lives behind complained that there was noise coming from the kids. And I thought, well, the Dell's been there a lot longer than your house has been, so unlucky would have been my answer. But either way, it was removed. There is now no seating provisions at all, not a single bench or nothing in that whole area. So if anyone, especially someone that's maybe a little bit older, took their dog down to exercise because it's enclosed, they could just let their dog off and, you know, take a breather. They can't sit down anywhere. So, I mean, I don't know if it's any other business, so we don't really like to make resolutions at this point, but
Put a proposal together at the next meeting.
But it is something that needs looking at because it really upsets me.
Chuck through and get done very quickly, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're asking proposal to look at
Well, at the next
where
meeting,
and how much
can we have
a seating arrangement
like
could be done.
at the next meeting, can we just have some quotes or something, or even maybe look at moving some of the benches we've got in Queen Square and move a couple down there, because I just think,
You're very welcome, as you know, to put a proposal together.
yeah, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention while it was still fresh in my mind, because I went there this week as well.
So
And,
just to
it jogged my memory.
summarise, you'd like to get an idea of quotes to put some seating down
Yeah.
and bring back to.
Do you know what would have been nice? A
Company.
nice big boulder. Do you know what I mean? That
Yes,
big
it
bill.
would. I don't know how they got
Nice
it
big
out.
boulder for us.
Yeah.
to
I don't know
sit
how they
on.
got it up.
More even just
Because it-
smaller rocks in a
It was
circle.
in
What
Keegan.
happened to the
Do you know what I mean?
Don't know. It was enormous.
Okay, so, sorry, the boulders are gone, so I think the-
But
So
a
we'll get,
replacement
we'll get,
boulder would be lovely.
What a load of boulder dash.
Yeah.
so we'll get quotes and an idea
Yeah.
of some seating down there. and bring it to this meeting.
We may
Howard.
have some spare.
Sorry, can I just rewind one sec? Can I just get it clarified? We agreed the proposal for the floodlights, but long jump pit at this stage, is that right?
Yeah.
So
the agreement was that we're going to meet on the site to identify a location that we can bring to this meeting next time.
Yeah. For the long jump pit.
For consideration.
But lights are okay.
Lights are okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Thank you.
contact UKPM and say, please do a survey. Also, we'll check what surveys the council have access to. Right, does anyone else got any other business? Yes, please.
Just an update quickly that the survey that's being done by the UEA is progressing well. Some interesting results from the interim report that we've had halfway through. And also that I was aware that there was, you thought we were asking you for money, not the last meeting, the meeting before we weren't. But I did write to Great Ellingham Council, who've given some pounds towards the survey. And I have now written to a whole of other local councils, parish councils, that they'd like to contribute, the ones that are served by our doctor's practice. So we're progressing well in that.
Good job.
Well done.
Good, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, I've got a couple, more for information than anything else. In terms of going forward, back to projects and project management, we're trying to get a bit more professional, and this will help when the new clerk starts as well. I've done a pro forma, I've sent to Phil and Andy previously, September 2020. Of every time we have a project, an idea, there'll be a pro forma, whoever's leading it, so lead, project number, project budget, project scope, project brief, project approvals, key stakeholders, etc., program, etc., etc. So something Tristan's alluded to. When we do something, it's there, it's transparent, it's project management, basically, and also budgets. So I've drafted that, Phil's seen it, Andy's seen it ages ago. What I'll do, I'll send that round to all of you, have a look at it, but that's kind of the front sheet of everything we do. And again, that can be shared on the website. Goes projects, and it will have a lead councillor or lead AMP committee member against that. The other one is still trying to get a meeting with Homes England in Breckland. We're conscious the consultation is done. We may well miss, but I don't know, but we're trying to arrange that. In relation to that, and longer term, and the challenges we all face as sustainability, carbon zero and everything else, me and Phil had an informal meeting, and I will stress the word informal because I've been caught on it in the past. Why did you have a meeting without anyone giving you approval? With basically the key stakeholder manager for Environment Agency with these things. And he and they are very keen to work with us in Attleborough about how we do things differently. So how we incorporate in the 4,000 housing, what we do small project wise, big project wise, against the whole things that the Environment Agency are keen on working with others. So biodiversity, water, sustainability, climate change, design, transport, 20-minute neighbourhoods, everything else. So, so it was a very productive meeting, very encouraging. They want to work with us. What I'm going to suggest is we invite Keith along to this meeting, or we might just open it up for like Norfolk Wildlife Trust. This is us, the Environment Agency. This is what we do. These are our responsibilities. These are our challenges. This is how we want to work in partnership with people like yourselves. I'd also like to suggest I do a similar invitation to the Town and Country Planning Association to talk about the 20-minute neighbourhood concept, which I've yet to bring a proposal to this stage. I'm trying to get the ducks in line. And again, I might do it with Keith or an open invite on this is what it's all about. This is how communities over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years need to adapt and change to meet all the challenges we're all facing: climate change, sustainability, future growth, and everything else. So there's been some discussion. All I'm saying is to inform you there are discussions behind the scenes to try and get what I think are key stakeholders together and see if they can work with us.
Have you got any notes from this meeting? Because
No.
I've got quite a few things to say. I think it'd probably be best if I put a paper together and just flash it round.
No, it was informal. But again, like a lot of these things, you talk with people saying, listen, are you interested? Do you want a discussion?
Okay.
Yes, no. If
I
no,
think it'd be
doesn't
much
carry on.
better than if
it's not a formal meeting, which is why I stressed informal. It's to see, are you interested?
right.
Would you like to work with us? What's the best way of engaging with you going forward? How would you like to do it? What can you bring to the table? After that, it becomes more formal.
Right. As you know, I'm a great one for notes. I like to
Absolutely,
know
and your
what's been-
notes are fantastic.
Yes, okay.
But I know professionally, if you ask people to have a meeting with them and you say, sorry, I'm going to start taking notes and everything else, and won't talk to you. Because what you want to find out is what's it all about, what's the project, what's this, and not take notes so that any promises seem to have been made.
Well, you can just make a few notes, otherwise sometimes, you know, it's the
I could do, but as I said, it was an informal meeting, and the same with Norfolk Wildlife Trust, it's an informal meeting. If you want to talk to us, yes, great, let's arrange a meeting, and we can take whatever next one. There's no conspiracy, there's nothing going on dark arts, there's nothing going on behind the scenes, no deals have been made, no promises have been made. Actually, I know you don't trust anyone. We're trying to get these people to work with us in Attleborough, and I think what we've done over the last 12 months, you'd never get the Environment Agency to come and talking to a parish council like they want to talk to us. And I think, you know, a bit of
That's just so they can tick a
support
box
of,
saying they've-
we are doing things. Sorry?
That's just tick it so they can tick a box and say they've done local consultation. Because they will now, because they spoke to you
That's certainly not the impression,
informally.
that certainly wasn't the impression, I think. what
I was
might-
being
We
tongue
can all be cynical, we can all
I
be
was
cynical.
being tongue in cheek.
But there's an awful lot of effort going on behind the scenes to try and get Attleborough where we want it to be. And you need these key stakeholders, and you need to engage with them, and you need to bring them on board. And they're willing to do that. To me, it's a success in itself. They don't need to do it. So that was just an update.
Next meeting?
The date of next meeting is So book it as kind of the third Monday.
We like
or-
Christmas as well.
20th,
Everyone's doing like itching very much.
20th of September.
So, unless there's any other business, unless there's any other business, can I thank you all,